You're lying. You're hiding something from me. You're being withholding. You don't really believe I'm the steward here. You don't really believe I solved all these problems and I earned this. I did. We solved all these problems this whole way through. It's my turn. Create the shape of the one from the two. One from two. What does it mean? I'll try it. Okay. Okay. This goes here. That goes here. Okay. Okay. Maybe it works like this. This is the final episode of Discovery. This is life, comma, itself. That's right. This episode is about life. All the things contained in life. Where did life come from? Let's answer those questions. Or not. This is going to be a difficult review. It's kind of a review of 2 episodes. You see, this episode resolves itself, well, basically at the 50-minute mark. And there's still around, 25 minutes left to go. This episode is an hour and 25-ish minutes long. It's like a little movie in and of itself. Life itself. Let's see what's going on with this episode. I'm going to try not to meander too much. I'm going to try not to, go off on some flight of fancy about how this is the end of Discovery. It is. I want to stick to just the facts here, as in what happens in this episode. And then we'll get around to reminiscing a little bit. It's hard to disconnect this episode from the legacy of Star Trek Discovery, as this is the end of the beginning of New Trek. That's one way to imagine it. This episode is the conclusion of our adventure to figure out what's going on with the Progenitors. You remember that TNG episode, The Chase? Finding answers to quote-unquote religious questions, as in the case of Culber. What does it mean to find your maker? Right, we're going to meet our maker. Is it all we hope for? Do they have a good answer for us? Is we going to answer the mystery with another question? As I've said before, sometimes questions are better than answers. You don't always want the answers to the questions you're asking. Sometimes the mystery in itself is very fun. And I would be remiss if I did not say that that was the theme of this episode. And indeed, the theme of the whole season, perhaps. The mystery. The mystery being better than the answer. Culber was telegraphing it the entire season. I'm getting ahead of myself again. We're going into the portal. We're going into the antique can. We're going into the progenitor can. Michael arrives there, and what I would describe as a ornate but simple and regal yet inviting atmosphere. That's something I would expect from the progenitors if they could craft this themselves or alter it in a way to be more inviting to sentient creatures who may arrive. This whole mystery was set in motion centuries earlier by people who did find the progenitor technology. So I have to wonder, they're waiting for sentient creatures to appear. Was this whole thing designed in a way to be inviting? Was it designed to be easy to navigate? We find out that it's not that easy to navigate. It seems to go on forever. It seems to be confusing and dangerous. Is this part of the final challenge? Can you survive these dangerous environs? We're inside this this long tunnel. The negative space between objects seems to be different windows, if you will, into different planets. Not all of them safe. Not all of them really looking M-class. We could say that much. Burnham does fall into a few of them. Accidentally slips into a hazardous, dark, stormy world where she has a completely pointless fight with a Breen. Yeah, we're just in here, in a realm beyond all comprehension. Let's just continue fighting. Everyone's just kind of stupid. We do fight the Breen. We win against the Breen because the Breen gets swept away in a what seems to be intermittent hurricane of some sort, or tornado. I don't know. But we do get the first laugh out loud moment of this episode. Was this episode supposed to be funny? Where Burnham has to use the intermittent flow of the air and the wind speed to propel herself off a rock mid-jump back up to the hole in the sky that leads back to the progenitor world. And she does like the kind of hero stance again, like in Discovery Season 2 at the end of that. Perhaps this is a reference to Discovery Season 2 with the angel suit and the way she stood there, kind of like on like a 3-point stance, like knee, foot, fist on the ground, superhero pose. Never loved it. I don't like these Star Trek characters when they're high-flying superheroes, and really flying, by the way. But that's what happens here, and in a sense, it could be read as the first of many references to all of Discovery. This episode is loaded with references to the whole season, intentional or not, that I could pick up on by watching it through the lens of being a finale. Try that again if you've already watched it. Just look for things that is actually just lifted out of the past of Discovery. Lifted out of the beginning of New Trek. And I say that not in a disparaging way. It's just because people know what I mean when I say, like, NU Trek. There's like classic Trek, and then like modern Trek, and then New Trek, right? You know the difference. Burnham does a ridiculous superhero jump with the wind force behind her back into the Progenitor tunnel. And this episode, like I said, is an hour and 20-some minutes long, and you could almost cut like 20 minutes from this. So a lot of what goes on in the Progenitor room is it's just kind of fluff. There's no reason to go down here and fight this Breen. What was the point of it? It wasn't fun. It didn't really look cool. I don't know. It didn't have any weight to it. It's just a random Breen. Like, you don't want fights every 5 seconds in Star Trek, but you want it to, mean something. This is a fight between not just people, but ideas, right? This is the best possible case for this outcome to the plot, and then the other best possible case for this different outcome, coming head to head, and then meeting each other on the field of battle. That's, like the fight, the battle. I'm just going to bring this up. The Battle of Star Trek 6 in the Undiscovered Country begins in the dinner room at the dinner table, right? It's in the mind, right? At no point was there any kind of battle in the mind between Michael and the Breen. So it's just fighting this Breen down there was just fluff. It was filler, and we could have did without it. Now that we're back in the Progenitor room, Moll is there. Moll appears to be better at navigating the internal structure of this area, using the change in gravity to her advantage. Walls seem to kind of suck you onto them. Moll seems like she's been there longer, but we do learn that time maybe is flowing differently in here. So I don't know how long, relatively speaking, she's been here. Think about it in terms of time bending. We fight, and then we fight, and then we fight some more, and someone cut your artery on your leg, Moll. Here, I'm going to toss you this thermal regenerator. A show of good faith. Very smart. We argue a bit, and then we come to the conclusion that we're not going to get out of here if we don't work together. Either you're going to kill me, and the other one's going to die in here, not being able to figure this out. So we're going to have to work together. Michael Burnham betrays this trust as soon as she gets the hint that maybe Moll isn't going to follow through on this promise. I don't know. And just sweeps Moll's legs right out from under her. Now it's just thinking, man, here we go striking first, Michael. Once you lose that trust, it's gone. I had to go back and watch it again to make sure I wasn't seeing things. Michael does indeed strike first after they had an agreement. Maybe this is a reference to the first episode of Star Trek Discovery, giving her a little bit of a Vulcan hello. But no, we do betray that trust. The gambit here being that Michael is thinking, well, I know for a fact by the way Moll's talking, she's going to try to attack me later. And the fate of the universe is on the line, so I might as well just attack first. That's the gambit here, but I don't know if I really believe it. I don't know if Moll is thinking that far ahead. But nevertheless, Michael gets the advantage. And then they fight again. There's like a second fight scene between Moll and Michael. And Moll is indeed the quote-unquote villain of this season. But I'll commend them for having an unconventional villain, a sympathetic villain that we're kind of there's a give and take with this character. Like, they're not really bad, but then they're not really good. That's good. It's different, right? And I'll say that about the last 2 seasons of Discovery, is that they were less conventional than the previous 3. First 3 conventional, and then like 2 more at the end that were kind of little. They a little bit. They threw caution to the wind a little bit more. That was good. Leave it to Star Trek to get going in its 5th season, right? Star Trek Discovery, that is. But it has been true of previous Star Trek shows, finding their footing after a few seasons, and then when it's, in this case, it's too late. Maybe also in the case of Enterprise. But that's just my opinion. We fight between Moll and Michael, and then eventually we're just kind of tuckered out and we give up. And we're wandering around inside this progenitor area. And Michael, she says, listen, gravity works different in here. So to solve this clue, since clues were put together by the different races and people that put the clue together, they're using different thinking. Maybe we have to think like a progenitor. So you have to think beyond 3 dimensions. Nope. What thinking beyond 3 dimensions amounts to is walking up to a portal and then just like touching it and then changing where the portal goes. Your guess is as good as mine for what this means. Maybe we really are that different from the progenitors. And the progenitors thought this would be very confusing, and it wasn't, because they didn't know how humans were going to think. But we just walk through this portal that we magically wave into reality. We literally hand wave this portal into reality, and we go to what looks like a flower-filled field somewhere in the universe. I have no idea if this is a real place or some kind of constructed area. Your guess is as good as mine. I'm happy you're not knowing. After all, the mystery is a reward in and of itself, as we know. We go to this area, and not to be outdone, Moll wants first dibs on this insane puzzle. And this puzzle, I think I saw it at a restaurant when I was 5. Sometimes they give things to kids to keep them quiet so they don't scream a lot, as kids are wont to do. And you put together little puzzle pieces and you make different shapes, and wow, isn't that cool? And you would be forgiven for thinking that the final puzzle in this entire season that needed to be solved was going to be very complicated, as it should have been. What I had in my mind before this episode came out was way more complicated than this. But what we got, as the clue indicated that we got in previous episodes, the clue here was that build the shape of the one between the many. Michael thinks about this, and you can actually see her put her hand together like this, kind of. That's an interesting note. She goes like this. Build the shape of the one between the many. And if you look closely, she's making a triangle shape with her hands. Is that intentional? It's kind of cool, but I don't know if that was intentional. She was directed to put her hands that way. Because her body is kind of answering the question already. We need to create a triangle from smaller triangles. Moll, of course, does this earlier. Fails, thinking that, Michael says, right, create the shape of the one between the many. Between. And Moll's answer is just to put all the triangles together with no negative space between them. 9 triangles fit together like that, I think. And then it goes into like a safety lockdown and starts extracting energy from one of the black holes, probably disrupting its Lagrange point that it had, meaning it was going to go into self-destruct mode, essentially. It's going to get sucked into one of the black holes and be gone forever. Hell of a safety mechanism, if I do say so myself. And the people fighting this battle on the outside that I'll get into later notice this too. This is causing some kind of gravity problem. Holy crap. Michael hears this barely over her tricorder. Somehow the tricorder, not the tricorder, but the communicator. Actually, are they the same thing in modern Discovery? Are they like all unified? I mean, they just press a button or something and there's like a hologram in front of them. I don't know what's a tricorder or a communicator anymore. Are they different anymore? I have no idea. But, we're this far into the future. It's all so unknowable to me. But the communication is fuzzy. Somehow they can talk between the portal and the space outside of it. And things are getting a little bit hairy out here. So, Michael, you better figure this out. And the answer to the puzzle that completes the universe of New Trek is negative space, like I said before. Even back in Star Trek Into Darkness, the saucer had negative space. In a hole in it where you could see the bridge. Discovery comes out. There's a cutout ring of negative space in the saucer. We see the Enterprise return for Strange New Worlds and the end of Discovery Season 1. negative space in the nacelle pylon. So what's the answer to solve all of New Trek? Negative space. We need to have the 9 triangles on the outside to form a blank negative space triangle in the middle. Just like I said, it's something you give 5-year-olds. The second laugh out loud moment that I think was probably unintentional on their behalf. That's how you solve it. No, we didn't think past 3 dimensions at all in any way. We're thinking 2-dimensionally. It's on a flat panel. Okay, that's great. I thought we'd be arguing with our past self or something like that to figure this out. Or arguing with our future self. Or, looking back in a window at the time where we first came into this area, thinking 4-dimensionally and altering things for ourselves to make it easier for us to get back in here. Something like that. Oddly, something a little bit more like the end of season 2. But no, the progenitors think, or maybe the scientists who were here 800 and some years ago thought the final puzzle is just, well, it is indeed a puzzle. It is a puzzle. It is almost a jigsaw puzzle, except all the puzzle pieces are the same shape. And you need to make a shape of the one between the many. And there you have it. She puts the shapes together like this, and then she touches the panel, and Michael goes off into what I can only assume is a mind space created for her and the progenitor. And I'll be lying if I said I wasn't excited. I was excited to see this progenitor. I was like, finally, it's been a while. Hello, progenitor. Come talk to me. And we meet this progenitor, and I think their design is a little different. I'm not sure. I didn't go back and look up the old design from the TNG episode, but there's something different about just the physiology. This character essentially just says, I've been instructed to wait here for the next steward to show up to use the progenitor technology. When they say steward, my mind is thinking prophet or emissary. And I was thinking, here we go. Michael's just going to go off into prophet land. The same with Cisco. Not to spoil Deep Space Nine. I just spoiled the entire thing. But we're going to have a literal hero's journey where the hero walks off into the sunset and never heard of again. Which is a cool way to end off a character's hero's journey, in a sense. But no, we go for what amounts to the obvious answer. What did you think Michael was going to do? What did you think the Federation would do when presented with such powerful technology? We asked the progenitor, did you create all these worlds here? No, we found them here. And did you create this technology that you're using to create life for these worlds? No, it was put here before we were here, and we think it was put here by the people that made us. Keeping the cycle going again. Initially disappointing, but then at the end you realize that, oh, that's the whole point. The mystery is the answer. The answer to the question is another question. And you don't want the answer, you just want the questions to loop forever. And enjoy the mystery, as Culber was saying. He was kind of hinting at it in an awkward, weird way. Just one character kind of espousing this. What did Janelle know? Of course, Culber had like a Trill style mind meld, like a Xantara or something like that, where he became an ancient scientist known as Janelle, who was here originally, researching progenitor technology. Janelle knew it was up. Janelle knew that the whole mystery behind the progenitors is just that. It's another mystery. So maybe you don't really want the answers, or maybe you're going to be disappointed when you get them, as I was originally. We do ask the progenitor, we need to keep our promise. We promised we were going to try to save Locke. The progenitor says, we can bring back Locke's body, but not his mind. It would just be the exact same organism, but without its memories. And I was just thinking, no freaking way. No way. You are the most advanced aliens we've ever met so far. I mean, you're up there. You must be up there with the Q and things like that. There's no freaking way that you can't bring Locke back. I don't believe it. 800 and some years ago, 700 and some, because this was in Star Trek Picard. I think I saw Picard die, and you put his brain in an android body. How did you do that? There's got to be a way. All through the history of Star Trek, we've been kind of, sort of, somehow bringing people back from the dead. Okay? Special cases here and there, yes. We did put Gray Gray's mind into an android body. Are you telling me we can't... The progenitors can't just bring Locke back? We can't make another Locke, and then the progenitors can't do some kind of mind meld thing and then put the memories of the dead body into the new one? You telling me the progenitors can't do that? I don't know. Michael just kind of accepts it. But progenitors, they're so wise and so above it all. I wouldn't be surprised if Michael just asked, "Are you sure?" And then the progenitors would smile and say, "We're sure." It's worth an ask. It's worth an ask. I would have said, "Progenitor, are you lying to me right now? Is you lying to me, progenitor? You telling me you can't bring this guy back from back from dead, and we can almost do it ourselves, but progenitors can't do it? You're lying. You're hiding something from me. You're being withholding. You don't really believe I'm the steward here. You don't really believe I solved all these problems and I earned this. I did. We solved all these problems this whole way through. It's my turn. I get to use this technology and then bring Locke back." That's not what happens. They just kind of accept that Locke cannot be brought back. Although we just saw Lower Decks, what was it, at the end of season... Was it the end of season 1 or end of season 2 where, remember, Rutherford gets his memories wiped because of his implant, and we just kind of start fresh? And it was all happy-go-lucky, and we were having fun because we got to start fresh. Fresh beginnings. Bring Locke back. Who cares if he doesn't have the memories? What's the problem? Start again. I don't know. It's better than nothing. Isn't it? You're probably going to have lots of moral questions raised here. Questions for me that seem to be flying in the face of the overall theme of this season. Like if you ask me, well, I mean, you can't bring Planet Quajan back because it would be against the thematic core of this season. Whatever. Bring it back. We're in this progenitor space. They say that we have time to learn how to use this at scale. And time seems to be functioning here differently than out there, so maybe we can spend as much time as we want. I don't know. It's not super clear to me. Can't just bring back Quajan. What's the difference? Tell the progenitor, can we, actually, can you just make us like 1,000 new M-class planets with no life on them? Is that too hard? What's wrong with that? What? You put it here to use. You are essentially our gods, in a sense. Have we not earned this? Can't we just give me a few M-class planets, please? Can you do that? Is that asking too much? I don't think that's asking too much. I don't think it's asking too much for a destroyed planet to come back. I don't know. Oh, but we can't do it because blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Just use it for what it was intended. You solved these clues this whole way through. The progenitors had to have known that they had seeded life. They had used the technology that they had found to seed life all throughout the galaxy for the sole purpose of creating a variance in sentient life, so they were not alone, so that they had all kinds of different cultures spring up. They had to have known that this would ultimately lead to an outcome wherein one of these creatures finds the progenitor technology that is either A, worthy of using it, or B, not worthy of using it. Meaning that the question is in play, because they're not all the same species, and therefore are going to be at odds in some regard. The progenitors had to have known this, so if somebody came here with ill intent, they just have to accept it. They did it. They did it this way for some reason, I don't know why. Just say, well, either A, give them what they want, whatever the steward wants to do, or B, only unlock the progenitor technology when all civilizations in the entire galaxy that are sentient have merged into one super civilization. As I assume happened to the progenitors, maybe the progenitors were originally multiple different species. I don't know. They flat out say they were the only sentient species. What happened before that, I'm not totally sure. But we're not playing the same game as them. When the progenitors did this, they were the only ones and didn't have any pushback. When we're here, we're one of zillions and cannot rightly take this progenitor power for ourselves, lest it unequally affect another civilization. The progenitors must have known this. If they had known this, why did they let people use it? if they're so smart? Why did they just allow the clues to be out there in the first place? Why did they just not destroy the technology? Why didn't they just put it in a black hole themselves? I don't know. The logical questions that you ask compound upon each other. Message good, morals good, theme good, where we are in the story good, how we're getting there. There's some leaps here that I'm not quite getting. I'm not quite as attuned to the thought process that creates a Star Trek like this as some other people are. I respect that. I did like the season a lot, but ultimately Michael only needs to take her hands off the pedestal to exit this mind space, and she does. That's your A plot, and we're going to come back to it in a moment. Your B plot is admittedly a more interesting final battle than I'm used to for modern Star Trek. In modern Star Trek, I'm used to these silly hundreds of spaceships versus hundreds of spaceship shootouts that go on forever, and it just looks like little mosquitoes buzzing around each other, and I don't know what's going on. And it's usually headache-inducing, mostly in Season 2 of Discovery at the end, that being the worst example. We didn't do that again. We showed restraint. Good. The only ship here at the very end is Discovery. And we're being menaced by fighters that came from inside that Breen's dreadnought, which doesn't belong to Rune anymore, I guess. We have to figure out how to destroy it. Sir, there's an area of high density energy near the black hole right here. We're going to do that Star Trek thing where we fly into it, ignite it with a torpedo, and hope that we can get out before they do. Excellent. It's just like all those other episodes of Star Trek. Let's do it. So they fly near the black hole, get all the Breen fighters to follow them, ignite the energy field, and destroy all these Breen fighters at once, but they're still dealing with this dreadnought. They come up with this cockamamie slapstick scheme. If the slapstick fighting inside the Progenitor portal wasn't enough, we got more slapstick for you. We have to separate the saucer from the secondary hull of the Discovery, like it's a Galaxy class. One could easily disable all these arguments for the Discovery doing all these advanced things by just saying that it's not the original Discovery anymore. This is the Discovery A. It does indeed have a different looking neck. Look at the neck in the refit for this century of the show. It does look different. So this saucer disconnection, it doesn't have to necessarily be destructive. It could be reattached because we're far into the future. My understanding was that the Galaxy class was the first of non-destructive saucer separations that could be reattached without having to go to a space dock or something like that. But the Discovery does it because we're distantly into the future. That's fine. Why do we detach the saucer? Well, we have this plan to have the spore drive activate in the saucer and the secondary hull, but quantum entangled with each other, so that when we're separated, anything between these two pieces would necessarily spore jump at the same time because they're entangled with each other at the quantum level. If we disable all safeties, can we do this? No. Oh wait, we can. And it does look really sick. I will admit it. It looks really cool when we spore jump away a giant ship like that. And it's fitting for Discovery to defeat the enemy literally with the spore drive. It's fitting, right? What are the key tenets of Discovery? Spore drive, Michael, and I would say like going to the future, right? These are the three biggest things about Star Trek Discovery. And we knock one of them off by we put a bow on it by having the big enemy at the end of the show, at the end of Star Trek Discovery, being defeated literally by the spore drive. So there's a thematic through line here, which would dictate that we should beat it with the spore drive, if you understand what I'm saying. I kind of agree with it. It's insane, and it looks cool, but I kind of know why they did it. We spore jump away the gigantic dreadnought, and it looks awesome when it's spinning around. What were they thinking when they were on board? That must have felt really strange. Especially if you didn't expect it. You've never spore jumped before. But Rayner, where are we going to spore jump them? And he says he spore jumps them to the edge of the galaxy or something like that. It'll take them 10 years to get back. That's longer than they gave my family. And I'm supposed to cheer this on. but I know that we just used Starfleet property for revenge. That's not how you win friends. It doesn't work like that. You can't. They didn't give my family a chance. I'm going to spore jump them so far away they'll never get back. Yeah. Maybe like a week away would suffice. But Rayner wanted revenge on, I guess, in that moment, and he acted on it. And it was a little weird, but it is what it is. We spore jump the Breen so far away they'll freaking never get back. Sorry, Breen people on that ship who were just following Rune's orders. Sorry. Imagine if we had spore jumped the Dreadnought to Starfleet headquarters. What would happen? They wouldn't know what the heck was going on, and all those ships would just surround them. Could the Breen Dreadnought take on like 100 Starfleet ships? And then we could capture the ship, go on board, and figure out how everything worked? It's dangerous, but, maybe it would have been cool. That would take a rewrite. And yes, it would indeed be very dangerous. I know what you're thinking. In a C plot, in a sense, we have to figure out how to get control of this portal, and we're still playing around with this idea that we can tractor beam a portal. At the end of the last episode, I chalked that one up to a mistake. Maybe they didn't know they couldn't. I didn't think a portal had mass, but I guess it does. Or the technology, like I said earlier, has changed this far into the future that that's not really necessary. And we do indeed realize that there is a subspace component to this that we can lock onto. So this tractor beam now is operating outside of normal space. So there is, there's a setup here why this can work. It's a little strange, but in my mind, tractor beaming a portal is a little bit odd still. Maybe it's happened before. I can't remember every single episode of Star Trek ever. Although I should be able to. Why can't I remember every single episode? I'm just dumb, I guess. Culber begs to go on this mission with Book. Book, I have to go with you. Why? I just feel that. I don't know. And at the last moment, Paul just says, okay, buddy, you're good. You go with Book, and I trust you, and you've been having all these weird awakenings this whole season. Maybe it's a good thing that you're just going with Book on a whim, and they do go in this shuttle, and they can't figure out how to tractor beam onto this portal before it gets sucked into the black hole after it's disturbed its Lagrange point because Moll activated, stupidly, the safety protocol thing. And then, right out of the blue, Culber says, oh, here's the frequency, and he pulls it right out of thin air. This is the subspace frequency that we need to lock onto to get control of this portal with the tractor beam. It seems like a guess, like, and it works. And it turns out the answer is a lot more simple than just, I just pulled it out of the ether because I've, in this season alone, become connected with some kind of, beyond physical, spiritual force. No, he just connected to Janelle, and Janelle knew how to save this portal, how to figure out the subspace frequency. Janelle, once again, proving he's the MVP of this whole season. Janelle's got her back the whole way, and Janelle, in a sense, tells Culber through his own mind, not that he needs to go on this trip with Book to be the only one who can capture the portal. He doesn't say that. He says, here's this code. And then Culber figures out to use it to tractor beam the portal by figuring out the subspace frequency. Book rightly says, how did you know that? After that, after it's all said and done, Book is like, how did you know that? It's like the voice of the audience. How did you know that? I was prepared for Culber just to say, I don't know. And then we were left to figure it out. But he says explicitly it was Janelle. Maybe the mystery there would have been better too. Maybe Culber says, I don't know how I knew. I don't know. The audience wouldn't like that. But you have to admit it's in line with the themes we're trying to present. That of mystery being its own reward. We spore jump that dreadnought away. We beam Michael and Moll out of the portal. And what do we do after 5 minutes of talking about it, or even less? Paul is so excited. This is the most incredible scientific discovery ever. This is amazing. Paul's whole arc this season was losing the spore drive and then getting the new legacy of being one of the people who rediscovered the progenitor technology. Only to then 5 minutes later just say, we're not going to use it. Sorry, Paul. You didn't get to leave the ship this season. Another thing you didn't get was to have your big scientific victory. Scientific victories is like the opposite of mystery. It's about removing mystery. But now we just got more mystery. Culber will like that, but maybe not Paul, and maybe not me. I don't know. But we decide we can't use this progenitor technology. We're not advanced enough yet. Even though we solved all these clues. So we did everything we were supposed to do. We throw the portal back into the black hole, getting rid of it forever. Or, as Michael says, until the people who originally designed it, before the progenitors, decide to do it again. So, it's safely gone forever until someone out there figures out how to get it from beyond the event horizon. You never know. And we don't use it to do anything. We don't use it to revive Locke. We don't use it to rebuild Quajan. We don't use it to, well, frankly, do much of anything. I'm sure there's something we could have did with this that was, like, morally 100% on the level. But no, we do throw it back into the black hole. The ending, we all knew had to happen anyway. Be honest, you knew that had to happen. You knew that was what was going to happen. So at least we avoided the bad future where the Breen won. So I'd call that a victory. We cut to Saru and Tarina's wedding. They've been hyping this up for, it feels, almost 2 seasons now. And we're getting the victory at the very end. Saru and Tarina get married. Saru's costume looks awesome. All your friends are there in dress uniform. And Book he's got a different costume on. And he looks very spiffy. And I thought with his costume and his hair, he looked kind of different. I thought that look was cool. I thought that could have been his look for this whole season. When I saw it, it was pretty sick. And not to be outdone by Tarina and Saru's wedding, Book and Michael end up on a comically romantic walk on the beach. And there's nothing like being around a wedding to make you think of your own wedding, right? So Michael and Book finally patch things up as if there was ever a problem. They never seem to be that at odds with each other this whole season, but they just kind of finally make up at the very end here, outside of Tarina and Saru's marriage, and just essentially say, well, let's just make it official. And they kind of, you put words to it, you put verbiage to it. Here we are, let's do this. It's essentially a will you marry me type thing, but they never said that. I would have went with it. I would have went with if Book said, will you marry me, right here. We all knew that they were never not an item. We all knew this. It doesn't really feel, it just has no weight to it if we knew that there was never a problem between Book and Michael. They could never dissolve their chemistry. We knew all along this was going to end up like this. So who cares? Forgive me for not being super sentimental about it. But it's hard to put a pin on something when you knew exactly how it was going to end anyway. Finally, this episode ends. Before we get to the second part of this episode, this part of the episode ends the same way that season 2 ended, by declaring everything to be classified. Silly in a prequel, okay in a sequel. We're in the future, we can classify things. If we go back in the past and classify things like we did in Discovery Season 2, all we're doing is saying that it's a cop-out to make sure nobody in the seasons and shows that come after this one, chronologically, don't know anything about what we did. We have to classify it. It's a cop-out then. But now it kind of makes more sense, and maybe it is a reference to old Star Trek Discovery. And Michael does say that she's used to these by now. Everything she did being classified. The Red Directive, whatever that was, is closed. Did the Red Directive supersede the Prime Directive? What is a Red Directive? Where did it come from? When did it start? What are the rules? What can we do in Red Directive? What can't we do in Red Directive? I'd like to know these things. But now that it's gone, we'll forget about it. It's classified after all. It's a Red Directive. So we introduce each other again. Michael Dukovich. Michael, USS Discovery. Not the Red Directive's over. My name, in a sense, is a Red Directive in itself. I don't know why. He reveals himself, Agent Daniels, USS Enterprise, and other places. Yeah, it's Daniels from Star Trek Enterprise. Who cares? Who cares? He doesn't look like Daniels. It doesn't feel like Daniels. He's an aficionado of old things. Daniels was a time traveler. Time travel was banned at this point in the future. So I assume he just lived here for the last 40-some years of his life or something like that, or whenever when time travel was hard banned since the beginning of Star Trek Discovery Season 3. Why did he change his name? What was the point in being called Kovich? Does anyone know? Yes, I understand time travel became illegal, but how long has he been here? If you just arrive and say, well, I'm here now, sir, time travel's banned now. You can't go back. Okay. Well, I'm Daniels. Nice to meet you. I'm Daniels. But no, we have a code name because this is Star Trek. This is New Trek. And mysteries are important. Mystery boxes are important, if you know what that means. Keeping things secretive. Red Directive. Red Angel. Red Lady. What does it mean? Control. Oh, wow, these are so cool. Except they're not really. Because they could have just said this was an important mission. Mission is not classified. Goodbye, Michael. I'm Daniels. From the USS Enterprise. Except we didn't call it the USS Enterprise in Star Trek Enterprise. It was just called Enterprise. Unless he was talking about a future Enterprise. Daniels could have been on multiple ships. He was a time traveler after all. But I don't know if the writers really knew that, and they just called it USS Enterprise accidentally. I'm not really totally sure. He has Geordi's visor, what I guess is Sisko's baseball. Things that you're probably not supposed to steal from the past. I have to imagine it's a bad idea to do that. But hey, I ain't a time traveler. I ain't a temporal agent. I don't know what the rules are. All I know is that it became illegal, and it probably became illegal for a reason. With that out of the way, that concludes the final episode of Star Trek Discovery. Before the real final episode. That was episode 10. Welcome to episode 10.5. Thematically, there's a through line. Thematically, it makes sense for this to be the final act, but there's a hard cut in the plot. And the solution to the plot where we beat the Breen now seems like a distant memory, because we're now in the future. I assume this is 40 years in the future or something like that. We're in the 33rd century, and we're in a place I can only assume is the replanted tree seed that Book got from that library. Remember that seed thing he had in that little container? They show it distinctly sitting on a desk, implying that this is the result of having planted it, growing into its own mini Quajan kind of a Book, fulfilling his original goal at being a nature preservationist. Remember when we first met him in season 3, he was saving endangered animals and things like that. We're seeing the fruition of that now. This is great for Book's character to come full circle like that, but this time with Michael in tow. Michael and Book are doing that thing everybody in Star Trek does when they retire. They get back to nature. They get away from it all. Kirk did it. Picard did it. Now Michael's doing it. Michael wakes up, takes a suspiciously long time to hit the floor, meaning she's old. That's how I knew she was old. She's moving slowly. And the old makeup in shows is usually pretty bad, but this time it's pretty good. Probably because these characters don't look that good in real life, and they just took the makeup off, and we saw how Michael and Book really look. Sonequa Martin Green, and what's his name? David Ajala. I think that's his name. David Ajala was great, by the way, this whole season. Book wasn't great in 3 and 4, but he's better here because the whole plot doesn't seem to revolve around him. As it did in 4, you'll get my complaints if you look at my season 4 reviews. We're raising our own animals, bees, deers, a deer named Alice, another reference to Alice in Wonderland. which is in itself a reference to Discovery. She looks outside, and we're in this beautiful red forest. We're building a little fence instead of using a force field. I don't know why we're not using a force field, but we're building a fence by hand. And there's a diagram on the ground of the new Starfleet logo, kind of like how Michael and Georgiou created that symbol in the ground to show where to land, where they were. Remember that? The very first moment of the first episode was that they were walking in a big Starfleet delta shape. There's another one on the ground here, just like episode 1. The ship lands. He's supposed to go to Corpuscula or whatever. He's going back to this character, Leto, is going back to the planet that Michael and Georgiou were on in the first episode of Discovery. But he's taking a detour to pick up his mom. Leto is the son of Book and Michael. Very cool. And he looks very dapper in his new Starfleet uniform. It wouldn't be a new season of New Trek without a new uniform to contend with, would it? No. There's always new uniforms. And they always never look like they're moving into the future. They just keep changing, and the more they change, the more they stay the same. Michael's Admiral's uniform looks right out of Star Trek Wrath of Khan. It's a monster maroon again, with the oddest looking weird cheese grater belt I've ever seen in my life that Michael touches her badge and it kind of like transforms into. They get on their shuttle, and I guess they're using the pathway drive. Forgive me for forgetting to mention the pathway drive, because it's not interesting in any shape or form. The pathway drive is just warp, but better. Saru used it to try to divert to Hal, and I forgot about that whole plot point because it felt so pointless. Saru and Nan go on a lone shuttle to try to divert to Hal by arguing with her, turning off all their defensive systems, offering themselves up on a silver platter. Action Saru, or Predator Saru, comes back out and just kind of yells at Hal that we know you want this trade route, and you just revealed to us that you have these bases there, and I'm offering you the certainty of a trade route there. If you go to fight whatever ruins Dreadnought to get that technology, you're going to have an enemy forever, and look in my eyes if you even doubt me. And it's a great performance, but I don't know, I just never really believed it. Why would Tahal not just blow Saru and Nan out of the water? I don't know. They would have maybe also captured the pathway drive. Think, Tahal. They caught you when you were at warp. They must have been going very fast. Maybe we should capture that shuttle and steal the pathway drive. Of course, the Breen aren't that smart this season. And the pathway drive, they hyped it up all season. They mentioned it many episodes ago. I don't know what it does. I don't know more importantly, I don't know what it can't do. I don't know how it works. And it doesn't really look any different. It fails on all 4 points. It's just warp but different. The pathway drive in its entirety was, I guess, a narrative device just to make sure Saru could catch up with the Hal's Dreadnought. That's it. Enjoy. Back on track. We're back into the future, using what I assume is the pathway drive on this shuttle to take Admiral Burnham and her son Leto to Federation headquarters for the Discovery's final sign-off. This is the Discovery's final sign-off, and the show Discovery's final sign-off. We're converting the Discovery back to how it looked in Season 1. We're undoing the refit. We're unrefiting it. You know, like how we kind of have to do that to the Strange New Worlds Enterprise to look like it belongs in TOS in 5 years when we get there. You know how we're going to do that? Well, we're doing that to the Discovery first. In the distant future, that is. Leto, we never find out Leto's command. He's a captain. So he must be over 35. He must be. I don't buy this idea of these super young captains, really. So what's Michael, like 60 something? Maybe Michael and Book are going on 70, I don't know. They look good for their age, probably because this is Star Trek and they're probably going to be living to be 200 or something at this point. We'd never find out enough about the future of Starfleet here. We see the nasty new uniforms that are tacky in all the wrong ways, and the uniforms, they're so busy and ugly. They're gross. more is not better with these uniforms. We're taking the Discovery on its final voyage. Remember that episode Calypso, that short trek? There used to be these things that they would shoot between like seasons of Star Trek Discovery, where they would use the sets and props to make tiny little short films. One of them was Calypso, and in this short trek from years ago, somebody found the Discovery in the distant future, and it was abandoned, but it looked like it did in season 1. How do we resolve that? Because we've refitted the Discovery. People have been wondering that for years now. Michael and Discovery's final mission is to set the Discovery to automatically spore jump away into that area of deep space after it's refitted back to its original design, leaving Zora, the sentient computer, all alone in deep space with no one around until the episode Calypso comes about. All because in the episode Face the Strange, Michael and Rayner transport to a future version of Discovery that is abandoned, and it's the one from Calypso. So, because we know it has to happen in the future for our timeline that we're in to maintain its course as it is now, we have to preempt it and put the Discovery where it needs to be for the episode or short trek Calypso to take place so that we can see it in Face the Strange. But we're doing it willingly? How do we know that's how it got there? In Face the Strange, we should have asked the computer, Zora, how did you get here? So that we knew to replicate it. What if it didn't get there like that, and we're doing it wrong, and we messed up our own past, making our victory against the Breen impossible if we're on the single timeline theory of time travel? How did we know we're supposed to do this? How did we know that we're supposed to willingly abandon a sentient computer in the middle of nowhere forever? What if something else happened in the future that we couldn't predict? The future's coming. Anything could have happened. But no, we're preempting it. We're taking control of things, and we're making it happen now. Zora, you get out there. Let's fly. And Burnham sends the Discovery off on its final lone spore pilgrimage to the middle of nowhere. It spore jumps away, and this is the last time we ever have to see that hideous ship. We're never seeing that hideous fidget spinner pizza cutter ever again. Bye-bye, Discovery. Bye-bye, Spore Drive. Goodbye forever, hopefully. And we don't have to have any more crying, hopefully, and no more whisper talking from Michael. Bye-bye. You may feel differently, but some of my enjoyment from this episode comes from the fact that it's the last one. Now, with that out of the way, thematically, hard to separate this from the entire season, because it does play into the core elements of the entire season thematically and in terms of its message, that being mystery, being its own reward. Cultural differences coming together, finding the shape between the many, right? Civilizational specific speech patterns. It's all at play here. And it culminates in this final episode, I would say, in a satisfying way. Upon repeat viewings, I found it more satisfying. Remember, progenitor technology lets you create life. We got rid of it, but we created life anyway. We replanted the Quadrant seed. We've got animals everywhere. Michael and Book have a son. You don't need the progenitor technology to create life. The progenitor seeded life everywhere and gave us the ability to create our own life in diverse and new fascinating ways. IDIC, infinite diversity, infinite combinations. We already did it. We didn't need the progenitor technology. That's how the last section of this episode, although it's a clean break from the plot beforehand, that's how it works. That's actually how the plot solves itself, is that we didn't need the progenitor technology. On repeat viewings, I found it a little bit more quaint, a little bit more beautiful. So that was good. Musically, when we enter the progenitor world, there's like a haunting choral drone music. And we looked at that little plant, and I half expected it to be one of the singing plants from Talos 4. I don't know why I thought that, but it wasn't. It was just a regular plant. Musically, you would think that this episode would be a smorgasbord, and it would be kind of like a retread of everything we've heard before in Discovery. Discovery musically has not really been that interesting for me, and this episode follows suit with that. Like I said, we had an interesting choral dirge of death, of time, and also rebirth when we went into the progenitor space originally. Sadly, that did not follow through in the whole episode, in motif or in theme, musically. So it was a bit of a miss there. Visually, it was beautiful inside the progenitor tunnel. We did get to see the Breen dreadnought spore jump away, which looked really cool. But we didn't get to see any new fantastical ships at the very end. We did a jump into the future by about 30-some years, and you're telling me we didn't see another ship? We didn't see the Enterprise, not to steal the ending away from Discovery, but it was fun seeing Discovery get unrefitted. Hopefully, like I said, that can happen in Strange New Worlds too. Wink, wink. Visually, we're on par with what we've seen so far. Nothing as good as the end of last episode, Lagrange Point. Thematically, very good. Musically, it's okay. Plot-wise, there's a few logical leaps here, and it leaves a little bit to be desired, but it does end in a way that only seemed to make sense so far with what we've been given in this season. And the true ending that we get after the fake ending where we beat the Breen, it really drives it home. And it's hard not to feel a little bit sad. So forgive me for a moment while I go off on a little tangent about Discovery as a whole. Good or bad, we were all there on that fateful day in September 2017, which feels like a millennia ago now. So much has changed. We didn't know how much it was really going to change when we saw it. We knew it was different, we knew it was frightening, but we weren't prepared for how different New Trek was really going to be, I don't think. We saw the Vulcan hello, and it was, it was astounding in one way. And this is where we ended up. We are now at the end of the beginning of New Trek. And, it's being together at the beginning of Discovery, good or bad, for better or for worse, that has to mean something. And when we got to the end, I was a little bit sad. As much as I didn't really like most of Discovery, this season was alright. You did alright, kid. Here's to you. See you next time. Not. At least until Starfleet Academy rolls around. That was the end of Star Trek Discovery. That was life itself. And I'm giving this episode a 5.5. Not as good as a Lagrange point. And if we hadn't had the ending section, this would have been like a 4.5. I wouldn't have really liked it at all. But the ending, disconnected from the plot of the rest of it, somehow has, it brings it home. It really wraps it up. It feels like it's supposed to be there. The way it ends and discovering the progenitor technology was actually not super necessary for creating new life. What else could you have really asked for? How else was it really going to end? Be honest. With all that out of the way, I'm Lieutenant Mark, and I'm going to see you when next time I see you. And maybe the Discovery videos aren't really gone. Maybe they will continue. As in, top 10 Discovery things like this, or bottom Discovery things. Here are the bottom 10 moments of Star Trek Discovery. Star Trek Discovery retrospectives. Who knows what's coming? There could be anything on the horizon. When's Prodigy coming back? I don't know. I'm Lieutenant Mark, and I'm going to see you when next time I see you. So long.